This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Tonight on the South Today, a group protesting expansion plans for Wanaka Airport talk with their local mayor. A Queenstown businessman and philanthropist receives a rare award. And thousands of tiny feet are now pattering around the Otago Museum's tropical forest. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Melissa Barton. The Queenstown Lakes District Mayor and several councillors fronted up to protesters who accused them of not listening to the residents of the Upper Clutha. About 40 people waving placards said they did not want a jet-capable airport in Wanaka.
Wanaka locals gathered outside the Lake Wanaka Centre just after midday yesterday to protest the Queenstown Lakes District Council's attitude to reshaping Wanaka Airport into a jet-capable facility. Protest organiser Anna Simmons says a recent High Court decision confirms the council needs to focus more on listening to the public.
When we felt uncomfortable about the consultation process, the High Court has reinforced our discomfort, and we really want to start from a clean slate, start again. We don't want conflict in this town, we just don't want a big airport.
There's been growing frustration that the council are not paying attention to local voices, and a visibly disappointed Mayor Jim Bolt admitted he'd have to be blind not to see that some in the Wanaka community now distrust their council. He also says the High Court decision gives an opportunity to re-examine the proposed airport expansion.
So what is your intention?
Push the reset button and go back and have a fresh look at the issue.
Bolt says he does not yet know how and when future planning decisions for Wanaka Airport will be made.
Not for me to decide, it's for council to decide.
When do you think council might decide?
I have no idea.
When's it going to be on the agenda?
I have no idea. We've only just received the decision. We've yet to further consider it fully.
Simmons says the protesters' objections to the airport expansion are more than just about noise and bother for local residents, with larger issues also being at stake.
The point of this is just to highlight the ridiculousness of aiming for increasing airport emissions during a climate and ecological crisis, which we are definitely in the midst of now.
In Wanaka, the South Today.
Flights from Brisbane to Dunedin will be off the menu when Virgin Australia returns to the New Zealand market later this year. Before COVID-19, Virgin Australia flew about 2 or 3 direct flights a week from Dunedin. The airline says depending on how international air travel recovers over the next few years, the company could look at a return. Air New Zealand says it has not ruled out taking over the route, with Dunedin domestic routes already back to 90% of pre-COVID levels. Businessman Sir Ian Edgar was honoured with a special award at a ceremony in Queenstown yesterday. Well-known company directors, businessmen and former politicians all gathered together to congratulate the local philanthropist on his achievement.
At a special ceremony in Queenstown yesterday, businessman and philanthropist Sir Ian Edgar was made a Distinguished Fellow by the Institute of Directors. The honour is a rare one, with the number of Distinguished Fellows being limited to no more than 2% of the Institute's almost 10,000 strong membership. Sir Ian says the recognition means a lot to him.
It's quite emotional because people acknowledging things you've been involved with, but particularly I think making a lot more of it. You just feel in life that you want to give back, and I feel I've been able to do that because I've been fortunate in business. But I mean, the people that turned up, so many of them from, the Jim Bolgers and Stephen Tindalls, to come so far and to have the fun of catching up with a whole lot of us that are all at university together, and we've all gone our ways. So, no, quite emotional actually. It was great fun and long remembering.
Sir Ian has contributed financially to sports at all levels, and the Edgar Centre sports facility in Dunedin is named after him. Late last year, the 76-year-old was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, but he says that's not going to stop him from staying around to enjoy the 2024 Olympic Games.
An occasion like this is much better than a funeral, so I'm winning. I'm planning to be around for some time. I'm feeling better than I was, and certainly days like this make you feel even better. So no, the 24 Olympics sound like a good idea.
Sir Ian joins just 53 other people recognised as Distinguished Fellows in New Zealand. In Queenstown, the South Today.
Police and the trucking company Halls are investigating after an articulated truck was captured cutting off a motorist on video. In the video, a Halls truck can be seen in a passing lane next to the motorist, who is in the left-hand lane on State Highway 1 just north of Rakaia. The truck appears to be so close to the motorist, they are forced to drive off the road onto the grass verge. Halls says it will conduct an internal investigation into the incident, and there is never any excuse for unsafe or discourteous driving on the road. Meanwhile, similar footage was filmed by a tractor driver who was passed by a truck near the southland town of Dhaka today. They've got an extensive butterfly collection, an outstanding collection of taonga from around the globe, and now the Otago Museum is home to African millipedes. Being a warmer climate insect, they're due to be housed in the tropical forest, and the museum says they'll be another educational resource.
This African millipede doesn't quite have 1,000,000 legs or even 1,000. Typically they've got around 300, but you've got to admit, Otago Museum science communicator Ireland Jacobs is a very brave lady, having it crawl across her face for the cameras.
Almost tickly. Sensations kind of similar to if you had, I guess, a butterfly or a spider on you, but a lot heavier and like a bunch of them walking in a straight line together.
It's the first time living giant African millipedes have been on display at the museum. Roughly 12 of the large insects are housed at the museum, and Jacobs says they typically hang out in leaf litter, which is handy as it's also their primary food group, contributing to their, as she puts it, chonky appearance.
Similar to a centipede, although millipedes are a lot rounder, so you can see it's quite chonky compared to centipedes are really flat. And these guys are detrivores, so they eat decaying plant matter. So these leaves here on my hand, it's their habitat, it's what they live in, but it's also their food, so what they'll be eating.
The African millipedes are bigger insects than average New Zealanders are used to seeing. They can grow up to 35 centimetres long, be about 3 centimetres thick, and can also weigh about 80 grams, which Jacobs says is pretty heavy for a bug. Being a science communicator, Ireland Jacobs knows the rewards and risks of having one of these not-so-wee beasties crawling on her face. She says these are the first arrivals, and many more may come to the museum, or, she believes, nature may even take its course.
So if this is successful, we'll be continuing to get more. I have read online that they're pretty good at breeding, so it's possible they may be getting more of their own anyway.
As they could expect the pitter-patter of thousands of little feet. Jacobs says these not-so-little bugs have tiny mouths, so they can't bite. But when they're stressed, they do secrete a caustic goo. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on the South Today, we catch up with the Dunedin musician currently starring in a reality TV series, and we have the latest edition of Rugby Chat with Paul Dwyer, so catch this and more after the break.
Inside are all sorts of innovations from all over China.
TV, our favourite babysitter, but it can be tough keeping up with what our tamariki are watching. Luckily, the Broadcasting Standards Authority has made some smart changes to the classification labels. Ooh! Plus changes to the time of day certain rated shows will air, and awesome new parental lock features, meaning your babysitter's job is safe. Find out more at safeviewing.co.nz.
If you're at risk of developing melanoma skin cancer, you owe it to yourself to have a mole map. Mole map is coming to your area. Phone today to make an appointment. It could save your life.
A poorly maintained heat pump can lose up to 35% of its output. The Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner team are experts. Their specially developed chemical wash is totally biodegradable. Call Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner and get the job done by the professionals.
Welcome back. A Dunedin musician who's taking part in a reality TV series says he wants to make his city proud. And it seems he has, as he's in the final countdown.
21-year-old Dunedin-based musician TJ Zimba has made it through to the top 9 in a reality music show called Popstars. It's the first time the concept has been revived since 1999, when girl group True Bliss was formed. TJ Zimba says the journey is teaching him a lot.
Yeah, I think the whole process has been insane. Like, I was a bit skeptical, like, going on to like a show like this, because at the end of the day I was like, oh, this is reality. It's one of those shows where maybe someone gets eliminated and all that kind of thing.
He made it into the final stages of the competition this week on screen and says it was a shock, as he thought he was going home. Although, unlike other contestants, he's already got an established groove in the music scene, performing under the name Z.
You told me, do, re, mi.
I know that I have like a career outside of the show, whereas in most people in shows like this usually just disappear. I know that this show is one of those, Popstars is one of those things where it's like getting me ready to be an artist, and yeah, I'm excited.
Zimba grew up watching reality shows including American Idol and The X Factor.
Right. I can honestly say you are the worst singer in America.
Really? But never imagined he'd be on one. He says it was a giant leap from almost giving up on music last year.
I had just lost all my music, so everything I made last year and the year before deleted on my computer. My computer crashed twice. I remember having, like, it was the first time I'd cried since I was like 13. And I was like in my bed and I was like, I'm giving up, that's it, I don't care anymore.
And like with all episodic reality TV shows, it's filmed ahead of time. And like the others on the show, he's been sworn to secrecy. If he hasn't won Popstars, he's always got his own music, or even his physiotherapy studies at the University of Otago. Either way, he hopes to make his city proud. In Dunedin, the South Today.
In this edition of Rugby Chat, rugby aficionado Paul Dwyer talks with two members of the Zingaree Rugby Club. They admit that due to a string of recent losses, the team is struggling to attract new players.
Welcome to ODT Rugby Chat for another week. I think we're into week 4 of the competition this week. I'd just like to apologise to all those people that all the teams I picked at the weekend, none of them won. So I'm just an absolute loser. So that's good though. But today I've got Craig Snedden, the Prem coach from Zingaree, and I've got Roddy Scholes, who's the Prem manager from Zingaree. Thought I'd get these boys in A lot of people have been writing Zingari off, not me. A lot of people have been writing Zingari off. I called them cretins in Monday's paper, and they are cretins because these boys have turned round and tipped over not a bad Dunedin side at the weekend, and consigned them, by the way. They're currently holding the wooden spoon, the Sharks, which is great in their 150th year. So Sneds, mate, we'll start with you. Look, you boys have only had 2 wins in the last 3 years, both times against Dunedin, so that you're obviously, they are your bunny team. But talk me through the game and how you won that game.
Yeah, well, the game in itself, obviously the weather sort of...
That was bloody cold.
Yeah, it was pretty wet, pretty wet and cold and windy. Good day out at the beach in that second half, which obviously probably slowed the game down a bit and possibly played into our hands. And we just had a big talk during the week that we thought it was a game that we could really target, and we just said let's just go 100 at them pretty much in the contact areas where we targeted them, and just tried to make a bit of a mess of the contact area. And obviously having Kane and Nehi controlling our game at 9 and 10 helped a lot, but you know, our forward pack really stepped up, I thought, and got stuck in, and you know, we got a bit of momentum. And to be honest, I probably thought we left a couple of tries out there as well. Which,
well, you should have scored. Let's be honest, the game was 17-16, but you could have won the game by 10 or 20 points.
I think what it shows is a team that hasn't won for a long time, and you forget how to win, and you get a bit nervy in those positions where you can win games. And so it's really pleasing that we're actually able to close it out, even though it was only by 1. I know the confidence the boys got out of that was huge. So hopefully when we get ourselves in those positions again, we can maybe push on a wee bit with it.
Win some games.
Yeah.
So, righty, mate, I'll bring you in. So talk me through, I mean, you've been around Zingari a long time. Look, it's got to be really tough. Like, you're back to 3 teams this year, which is good, and you've got a junior cult side. But is it really hard to attract players, considering you haven't been tracking that well in Prems over the last few years?
Yeah, totally agree. Recruitment is really hard when the younger guys see that, you know, it's Zingari, they haven't won a game. Anyone can go and
just
do a
check that
Google
out.
search and see how they've gone, particularly guys from out of town. So, it does make it incredibly hard. And like you said, you got no Prem Colts, so, you know, if you can attract a good younger guy that's just not quite Prem level, we don't really have anywhere for them to play. So, yeah.
So where do you go?
A bit of a vicious cycle.
So where do you go? Like, I know you. Like, I mean, I talk about this a lot. I mean, everybody's saying, oh, you know, Zingari needs to go from the competition, but that's just bullshit as far as I'm concerned. But how do you grow numbers? Do you need these boys? Well, you're both involved, but do you need these boys to win a few more games? Is that going to make it just a bit easier?
I think that, yeah, winning 3 or 4 games in a season, it makes it a lot easier.
Sorry, I haven't mentioned my old mate Gerald Orr from Garrett Orr, who sponsors the show. Get over and see him in Kaikoura, and he'll be able to fix you up with a garage door, and we'll be back with you again next week.
And you can watch the full interview online at odt.co.nz. Still to come on the South today, a new tracking system is introduced for Otago bus users, and we take a look at the weather heading into the weekend. So see you after the break.
If you're at risk of developing melanoma skin cancer, you owe it to yourself to have a mole map. Mole map is coming to your area. Phone today to make an appointment. It could save your life.
A poorly maintained heat pump can lose up to 35% of its output. The Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner team are experts. Their specially developed chemical wash is totally biodegradable. Call Mr. Heat Pump Cleaner and get the job done by the professionals.
MTF Finance can help you turn the key on your next vehicle with a loan made just for you. TCs and lending criteria apply.
Thanks for staying with us. Otago bus users are now able to follow their bus on its journey after the launch of a new tracking system. As of today, real-time information about bus locations will be available for the Dunedin and Queenstown All-Bus networks. Users can view the information on the free app that runs on smartphones or by going online to the Otago Regional Council website. The location of buses is derived from GPS trackers fitted on every bus. Users will be able to save their preferred routes as a favourite to get notifications of service cancellations or disruptions. And now recapping tonight's top stories on the South today. A group protesting expansion plans for Wanaka Airport talk with their local mayor. A Queenstown businessman and philanthropist receives a rare award celebrating his successes. And thousands of tiny feet are now pattering around the Otago Museum's tropical forest. And now look at what's happening in tomorrow's ODT. Welcome Hayden Meikle. What have you got for us tomorrow? It's a big one.
Good evening, Mel. Yep, Saturday paper tomorrow, so I'm pleased to say there's lots of good reading. We start, of course, with the favourite weekend of everybody in the southern region, Bang Bang. It's duck shooting weekend this weekend, Mel. I don't know if you partake yourself on the back of a horse, perhaps. No. I grew up in a hunting house. My father was a hunter, my brother was a hunter, and look, it's a huge part of the southern community, especially out in our little regions. There's men and women and young people all over the show, and their mai-mai's heading out. It's a big part of the year. So we've got a lovely yarn on a bloke who's getting ready for duck shooting, but specifically talking about cooking the ducks. So not wasting them, and the sort of recipes that plays through his mind as he's out there waiting for the ducks to fly over. So all that, and sort of a look at how things are looking for the opening weekend, really, weather-wise.
I'm glad
and
he's
numbers.
excited. I remember plucking ducks when I was a child. Not my best
It wouldn't be
times.
my sort of key thing either. Another nice yarn we've got is a little bit of a pat in the back for the ODT, and there's nothing wrong with that, and it's specifically around our sports department, our wonderful sports department led by Steve Hepburn and including Adrian Ciccone and Jeff Cheshire. There's a new big study out from the Women's Sport and Aotearoa Group looking at the coverage of women's sport in the media, and it's been an ongoing issue for a long time as women's sport slowly but surely gets some more prominence. And it discovered that, look, the overall number is still quite low. I think 15% of all sports stories in the media over a sort of year were about women, but the ODT was number one in New Zealand. I think 19.5%.
That is something to be really proud of.
And we are proud of that, and our boys take it really seriously. We cover a lot of women's sports as well as we can. We want to do better. Everybody needs to do better, and women's sport is really going through a bit of a revolution. And what's interesting is that actually New Zealand globally is number one for women's sports coverage. So you could, Mel, say that the Otago Daily Times is the world's best reporter on women's sports. So that's great for those guys, and look, it's just the beginning. It's only going to get bigger and better. And there's a couple of lovely big yarns. One about missing people, the search for missing persons over a long period of time in Dunedin. And the other one is about the trouble that's been brewing up in Palmerston, a fascinating read for that little town. So pick up tomorrow's ODT for more.
I'm intrigued. I want to know what's going on in Palmerston. And you can catch that and more in tomorrow's ODT. And now it's time for a look at the weather.
Tonight's weather proudly brought to you by Mole Map.
Today's southern view is of rain clouds sitting over Saddle Hill. Beginning with the situation, an incoming high-pressure system will bring fine cool weather to the region this weekend, with frost inland at night. Travelling to the northwest of the South Island, it's a lovely autumn day for this area. Mostly sunny with 17 degrees for Greymouth and 16 degrees for Westport. Across to the northeast of the South Island, expect a bit of cloud tomorrow for Blenheim and Nelson and a high of 16 degrees. Moving down to Canterbury, Kaikoura and Christchurch can expect mostly a sunny weather with a light to moderate winds and 14 degrees. Ashburton also reaches 14 degrees, but you're going to have a bit of cloud. Moving to the southern towns, it's light winds and a fine autumn day with a high of 14 degrees for everyone here. Moving to Central Otago, it's pretty much the same here with light winds and fine weather for everyone here too. Wanaka, Queenstown and Alexandra aim for 14 degrees, while Te Anau has the region high of 15 degrees. Moving to the northern towns along the coast, Timaru is set for light winds and fine weather with 15 degrees, while Oamaru is the same with a slightly lower 14. Moving inland, Tuazu and Marama are due for light winds and fine weather with 15 degrees. In Dunedin, cloudy tonight with a southwesterly winds. Looking at an overnight low of 6 degrees, becoming fine and sunny during the morning tomorrow with cool temperatures and light southwesterlies, a high of 14 and a low of 4. And it's going to be cloudy on Sunday with sunny periods and scattered cloud with moderate southwesterlies. Temperatures are going to remain rather cool, looking at a high of 15 and a low of 5. And in Invercargill, becoming fine tonight with an overnight low of 3 degrees. Fine and sunny tomorrow with cool temperatures and light southwesterlies. Frosty tomorrow night, looking at a high of 14 and a low of 0. Mostly fine and sunny on Sunday with scattered cloud and light to moderate westerlies. Looking at a high of 16 and a low of 8 degrees. And that's all from the South Today team for this Friday and in fact the week. For the latest news from the southern region, head online to odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on YouTube and Facebook. And if you're in Dunedin, the Nook and Cranny Music Festival is on Sunday at the Dunedin Public Library from 10:30 a.m. Have a great weekend. Ka kite anō.
This bulletin proudly brought to you in association with Alex Campbell's Menswear.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.